not forsaken me? Where's the work that'll set my hands, my soul free? Where's the spirit that'll reign over me? Where's the promise from sea to shining sea? Where's the promise from sea to shining sea? Wherever this flag is flown, wherever this flag is flown.
Who are we? We're the ones who step up for each other. I've got your back. You've got mine. Kindness, humility, empathy. It's not just talk. It's who we are. It's who we always have been. And no one can take that from us. The movement to bring it back, it started here. And here. And here. In school gymnasiums, community centers, the living room down the block. You'll be where? Okay, we'll be there. Who are we? We're the movement that will beat Donald Trump. Welcome. We're going to have to sweat for it. We're going to have to sacrifice and fight. We're going to have to lead. Everyone is going to have to lead with kindness, humility, empathy, and not just talk, but action. Action today, action tomorrow. Action until we win. And we will win if we do this together. It's who we are. It's who we always have been. Now let's show them.
Thank you for joining this Biden-Harris campaign National Public Lands Day celebration. And now, please welcome Caroline Gleick.
All right. Happy National Public Lands Day. I'm Caroline Gleick, a professional ski mountaineer, activist, and lover of the outdoors. I'm honored to be here with you today to celebrate our national treasures, America's public lands. My job is part of America's outdoor recreation industry that currently supports almost 8 million American jobs and brings almost $1 trillion of consumer spending, according to the Outdoor Industry Association. My industry and my job depend on access to protected public lands and a stable climate. Right now, both are at risk. In 2016, I had a really close friend working on Hillary's campaign. She asked me to do an endorsement on my social media. At that time, I was being bullied and harassed online for being outspoken as a climate activist. I was too scared to do the endorsements. The polls were showing that Hillary had a strong lead, and I felt it wasn't that important for me to get involved. And I've regretted not speaking up ever since. This year, I vowed to do everything I could to make sure that we have a champion for our public lands in office. I learned that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have the most progressive climate agenda ever introduced by a presidential candidate. They've committed to conserving 30% of America's public lands and waters by 2030. They would permanently protect the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge and ensure communities across the country have access to clean, safe drinking water. So I started organizing an endorsement campaign for Biden-Harris. Vote Biden-Harris for the outdoors. I called up a bunch of my friends, and last Monday, the first wave of outdoor athlete and influencer endorsements went out. We reached millions, and we've just begun. It can be scary to take a stand, but we need to be brave. With COVID, we're seeing Americans flocking to our public lands. They're the places we go to find reprieve from the stresses of modern life. They're not places to be exploited for corporate gain. The overwhelming majority of Americans want to see our public lands taken seriously. And what's more, our public lands can be a part of the solution to climate change, not a source of the problem. I'm super concerned that future generations may not have the same opportunities to explore the outdoors. Having access to the outdoors has changed my life. It's saved my life. When I was a teenager, I went to treatment for abusing alcohol and drugs and other mental health challenges. It was difficult for me to imagine my future because I didn't know how to get through a day. I found a turnaround when I started to pursue my childhood dream of becoming a professional skier and mountaineer, spending time in nature on our public lands. Today, I can say with confidence that the outdoors saved my life. It brought a spark back to my eyes. Many can relate. I know we share a deep love for the outdoors. In these wild times, in these wild places, we reconnect with each other and with ourselves. Politics doesn't need to divide us. I'm excited to be here as we all work to elect Biden Harris for our climate, for the outdoors, and for the future of people and the planet. Now let's get this celebration going. I would like to introduce U.S. Army veteran and member of the Oglala Sioux tribe, John Around Him, to lead us in a prayer.
Thank you, Caroline. Dona Yahipiki Chante Washte Nape Chuzapalo. For everybody here, I greet you with a warm heart and handshake. And it's an honor to be here today to provide a prayer for you, to hopefully set the tone for today's meeting. I'm especially honored because land is very important to Native peoples, so it's an honor to be included in today's discussion. So I'm going to offer a prayer today, and I'll translate after. So if we could go ahead and center ourselves. Tokashla, lampetikile, wokla chicha tokashla. Tokashla mashten, tokashla wokla chicha tokashla. Tokashla wakanja na wonspe wichakyapi na ichathampi. Tokashla woki wichozani tokashla. Kuja tipi khbat tokashla na COVID-19 yuha Tukashla, Oyan Kapo, Unshila Kapo Tukashla, Kiwamita Tukashla, Oyatikila, Lana Tukashla, Woki Wichozani Tukashla. Tukashla, we thank you for today. We thank you for giving us another day today. We ask that you watch over our teachers. We ask that you watch over our leaders. We ask that you help our leaders have a strong heart and strong mind, and to help them with making the right decisions. We pray for those who are sick, and we pray for those who are battling COVID-19, those who have COVID-19, and those who are working to treat COVID-19. We pray for our families, and we pray for today's meeting. We ask that you give us good energy and to come together and to work together. Mitakiasi. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that powerful prayer, John. What an honor. Now I would like to introduce Biden for President National Sales Director Jen Ritter, who will lead our first panel with two very special guests on the topic of winning on public lands.
Hi there. Thanks so much, Caroline. And happy National Public Lands Day to everyone. This is such a great day. I am so grateful that I am living in Steamboat, Colorado right now, where every morning I get up and despite getting on Zooms, I get to look around and see our marvelous public lands. And because of that, I'm so grateful for the leaders that have really helped protect these lands. And that is Senator Jon Tester and future Senator Ben Ray Lujan. They have been great advocates for public lands, and I'm just so grateful that they are here today to talk about this issue and how we have together run campaigns on this issue and how important it really is. So with that, I'm gonna get to it and start our discussion. The first question is gonna go to Senator Tester. Could you tell me a little bit about how you and other Democrats have really made public lands a winning issue?
Well, first of all, thanks, Jen. It's great to be here in support of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Look, Americans have a deep love for their public lands and a connection to it. It really cuts through all political parties. And quite frankly, it helps me win and it helps Democrats win in a state like Montana, because when Democrats stand up for our public lands, we're also standing up for those local communities and the jobs that our public lands supply. So, all walks of life in Montana, and I think throughout the West and throughout this country, work to protect public lands. So we have an opportunity in Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, when they talk about our public lands, it gets people's attention. And quite frankly, whether it's hunting or fishing or whether it's hiking or whether it's just getting away from it all, our public lands are a place where you go out there and the cell phones like this don't work. And that's pretty cool, because you get away from it, you get to get back to nature. I think Carolyn talked about it and her challenges in younger years about how public lands and nature was very, very healing. So maybe the best thing that quite frankly, and the best way it was put to me was, with our public lands, you don't have to be a millionaire to be able to go out and hike or hunt or fish. You just be an American, you own them. And quite frankly, because of that, when you have people, Democrats like Joe and Kamala, that are out there talking about public lands and how important they are in the West, how important they are to our economy, how important they are to our way of life, then that gets people's attentions. And some of those folks are independents, some of them Republicans, and a lot of them are Democrats. And they'll get out and help you, and they'll get out and support you. And most importantly, they'll get out and vote for you.
No, I think that's right. I think one of the things that I've loved about campaigning out West, whether it was with Governor Bullock or Governor Polis, is just seeing how much people relate to the issue. And it doesn't matter if there are other issues that get in the way, like guns or others, just people come together on the idea of the outdoors belonging to all of us. And it's really a great thing to cross parties with. Ben, do you have or Congressman Ray Lujan, do you have anything else to add?
Ben Ray works as well, Jen. That's all right.
I know you too well. It's unfair. I'm like, oh.
My name's Ben Ray. That's how everyone knows me back at home.
Now I'm like, oh, is this formal?
All right. So I'm okay with that. And it's always an honor to be here with my friend John as well, Senator Tester. I often joked with him about growing up on a small farm, and I shared with him that we grew up on a farm just under 5 acres. And I think John told me that's about the size of his front yard there, as opposed to the farm that he's used to working out that way. But whether it's a small farm or a large one, we love our public lands. And look, Jen, the way that I was raised by my parents and grandparents is you leave things better than you found them. And especially when it comes to the land, you leave things better than you found them. You take that responsibility to heart. And growing up as stewards of those lands and looking at generations in New Mexico where this just matters to us, Senator Tester laid this out. The value of the Land Water Conservation Fund and putting people to work, investments in our communities, protecting our public lands, the strength and the value of passing the Great Outdoors Act. This was pushed by constituents across America and especially across the West. Their love, like Carolyn said, for getting up on those epic ski trips and climbing up to areas where you're putting those skis or that snowboard on your backpack and you're getting to areas where no one else has been and you're touching that snow for the first time. You can hear that wind blow and you just catch yourself, the serenity of what's around you, the river flow and the waterfall crashing. In New Mexico, you can go and explore ice caves. You can get down to the Carlsbad Caverns. You can run on down and with, just with your jacket that you may have tucked away in your jacket, you find yourself at the White Sands National Monument and you're on this just pristine, white, gorgeous landscape. You get up to the Valles Caldera and you're going to see some of the largest bull elk in North America. That's something Senator Tester and I, we might have a disagreement about, but I still say you're going to find them in New Mexico. Or you get out on a bike and you find yourself lost. It's part of who we are. 99,000 direct jobs in New Mexico, plus everything surrounding our eco-tourism in New Mexico. It's a fabric of who we are. And I think that's why public lands drive us across the West. And as John said, this isn't just an issue for Democrats. It's incredible how many of our Republican brothers and sisters join us on these important issues. It unites us. It brings us together. And in New Mexico, what I appreciate as well is the work that Senator Udall and Senator Heinrich have done building off the success of our former great champion and chairman, Senator Bingaman, with working with veterans, with hunting and fishing and coming together, working with others that maybe have lost a limb and they didn't know what they were going to be doing to get back outdoors, but you come together with some of those Paralympic sports and we're working together, right? It's healing, it's nurturing, it's good for us. So I think that's why it brings us together and why it resonates and why I was excited to be here, to be supportive of Vice President Biden and Senator Harris to become our next president and vice president of the United States of America, because they understand the value of our public lands. They're going to fight for the protection of our public lands, and they're going to find ways to bring us together. And this is one of those areas that certainly unites us all across America.
Perfect. All right, let's get a little bit into the race and just how you guys see Donald Trump's view on public lands.
You want to go first, Ben Ray?
John, I'll follow you, so you go right ahead. I'll follow you.
Well, I mean, in a word, it's horrific. I mean, Donald Trump has stripped protections from public lands across this country. He's done everything in his power to turn public lands over to his campaign donors, to cut off access and to drill in some of the most breathtaking landscapes in the world. I'm going to tell you, President Trump doesn't understand public lands. If he did, if he'd ever been out on them and actually breathed the air that Ben Ray talked about, he'd understand their value. He does not. And proof of that is appointing a guy by the name of William Perry Penley to be in charge of our public lands. This guy has publicly fought for selling off our public lands, and President Trump thought he was the best person to put in the position to be in charge of our 245 million acres of public lands. Now, I will tell you, thank God for Governor Bullock, because he filed a suit, and last night we got a great court decision, and William Perry Penley should no longer be in that position. But the truth is, he should never been in a position in the first place. And that is just a prime example of what President Trump has done to our public lands. And quite frankly, here's another one. And this isn't a news break. As we've seen wildfires rage across the West, particularly in California and Oregon and in Washington, it's a painful reminder that we need to address climate change. And the president thinks climate change is a hoax, for God's sakes. So instead of showing the leadership that we've had in previous administrations of bringing people together, he continues to divide, whether it's on climate change, whether it's on public lands, whether it's with our military. You go down the list, it doesn't matter. He's been in it for himself from the beginning, and public lands are not on his list of important things out there. So simply put, Donald Trump is the wrong president for our public lands, and he's the wrong president for the folks whose jobs depend on those public lands.
And Jen, I'll just pick up where Senator Tester left off there. I too agree that the Trump administration has been systematically attacking public lands across the country by selling and opening up these natural treasures to industries intent on destroying their pristine beauty. And just look at the record that they've put together. First, there was an announcement that the Trump administration would reorganize government agencies, including the National Park Service and the Department of Interior. Then 2 weeks later, Trump repealed a rule that stopped mining companies from dumping waste into rivers. Then there was deregulation pace that just quickened, right? The next Secretary of Interior tried to undermine our national monuments, opened up Arctic waters to drilling, and finally shrank 2 monuments in Utah. And now it's only gotten worse. Under the Department of Interior, there's a sacred site, a sacred place in New Mexico that we've been trying to protect in Chaco Canyon. And now Chaco Canyon, as well as the Grand Canyon, seem to be targets of the Trump administration to attack them and to open them up as well. Over the past 3 years, the Trump administration has attempted to remove protections from nearly 35 million acres of public lands and waters. That's almost equivalent to 1/2 of the entire state of New Mexico. So they have a horrific record here, and it just shows the urgency of what we have to do together to come back to heal and protect these important sites, these sacred sites, and make sure that we're able to deliver upon it.
Yep, it certainly makes you miss the days of Secretary Salazar and others when we were expanding our public lands. Hopefully we get back to that in the next 38 days. So with that, just, final question is, and you guys have kind of gotten to this, but why is this election so important for our future of our public lands? What else is at risk here?
Well, I'll just tell you this. In states like Montana, once you lose an ecosystem, it is gone and it's gone forever. Ben Ray started out by talking about leaving this planet in better shape than we got it. And that's exactly right. Our generations had the opportunity to enjoy the great outdoors because of our public lands. We need to make sure those public lands are around for our kids and our grandkids. Joe Biden will be a leader that brings people together to improve the management of these public lands, and he will tackle climate change. The fact is, Donald Trump, he'll continue to threaten the future of our clean air, our clean water, breathtaking landscapes, and quite frankly, he doesn't give a damn about our public lands. Joe does. Joe's the right man for the job. And that's why everybody on this call needs to get out there and make sure that everybody votes for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Look, Jen, we touched on it with the last question. What's at stake this election cycle is when President Trump jumped in there and they decided to go after Bears Ears, the lack of respect of working with our Native American brothers and sisters with protecting sacred sites that deserve to be protected, that are part of the public lands fabric as well. When we talk about the first stewards of our public lands, I was proud to lead those fights on the House floor and look forward to taking those to partner with our friend John Tester in the United States Senate, where we can share with the country and the rest of the world the urgency and the importance of protecting these sacred sites. And the way the Secretary Jewell did, the Secretary Salazar did, that President Barack Obama did, and Vice President Biden did, and that he and Vice President Harris will continue to do. That's what's at stake. The urgency of protecting Mother Earth, of protecting our public lands, of protecting our ways of life. And so I want to urge everyone as well, please do everything you can. This race is going to tighten up. We don't need you sitting on the sidelines. We need you talking to everyone. So please be active. Don't be shy. Take Carolyn's heat. We don't need you on the sidelines. We need you front and center. Please get out there and make sure that you get the job done, everyone. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you guys both. I've really enjoyed having this conversation. You are such amazing leaders on this issue, and it's so appreciated. For everyone else out there, please go vote, please go volunteer, do everything you can. We've got 38 days to make this happen. Back to you, Caroline.
All right. Thank you, Senator Tester and Representative Lujan, for your continued support of public lands. And thanks, Jen, for leading such an insightful discussion. I've personally traveled to DC to meet with elected officials about a dozen times, and every time Senator Tester shows up personally to meet with our groups. It means a lot to me. We know that our public lands are places for us to play, to find inspiration, to hunt or to fish. They're economic drivers for our communities, and they're also places for carbon sequestration, such as the case of an old growth forest like the Tongass in Alaska. Next up, we have videos from some of our supporters joining in from across the country to tell us why public lands are important to them.
Hi everyone, we're Jen and Ann from the Hot Tomato Pizzeria in Fruita, Colorado, and we want to wish you a happy National Public Lands Day.
This day is important to us because our community is surrounded by amazing public lands that we all get to utilize every day.
No matter how you enjoy the outdoors, we're fortunate to have access to these national treasures, whether you're hiking, biking, or simply enjoying a slice of pizza.
Thank you for supporting public lands. We hope you get outside.
So being in Iowa is being something unique. And I'm a kid from Waterloo, but as you can hear the traffic go by behind me, there really is no urban and rural, there's just one Iowa. Our communities butt up together, so as somebody who grew up loving hunting public lands, part of that means you get used to the highways and the overpasses that cut through. But what we're finding is that as time progresses, our state loses more public land with access to hunting and fishing for everyday Iowans. It's getting harder and harder to find some place for me and Luigi to go and set up our blind for waterfowl season. Typically, you have to know somebody with a private pond to have a bountiful hunt. That's a problem. The average everyday Iowan deserves the ability to go out to a public land and have a fruitful experience, doing the things that they enjoy. We've got to do something different for the future of Iowa so everybody has access to quality wildlife and game, quality experiences, the things that as Iowans we hold dear.
Hey, this is Zach from Portugal the Man, enjoying some lovely Oregon weather. But I miss home, I miss Alaska, and I wanted to say hi and talk to particularly the youth and talk about your voice and how to use it and when to use it. And coming up soon, you will have a chance. I am reminding everybody to vote. Please register to vote and utilize iwillvote.com. And there you can register, you can change your address, you can find polling locations, polling dates, all that kind of stuff. And don't believe that your voice doesn't matter. It does. And please use it and make this rainy day a little more bright. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I miss y'all, and hopefully I will be seeing you soon.
That was fantastic. It's so cool to see the support for public lands across the country. Next, I'd like to welcome a true champion for wildlife, public lands, and our climate, who will lead our next panel with two very special guests who know a thing or two about managing and protecting public lands. Colin O'Mara is the CEO of the National Wildlife Action Fund. Colin, I'll turn it over to you.
Caroline, and thank you so much everyone for being with us today. And I apologize for bringing you inside for a few minutes to talk about public lands. But look, it is a spectacular National Public Lands Day and Happy Hunting and Fishing Day as well. And frankly, what better way to start our celebration of public lands than the amazing victory in the state of Montana yesterday by Governor Bullock, who finally called the question whether William Perry Penley should appropriately serve as the acting director of the Bureau of Land Management. And the judge rightly said, absolutely not. And all of his decisions will hopefully be vacated. It is my absolute honor to be with two of the greatest conservation champions in our country, two of my personal conservation heroes for this next panel. During the Obama administration, you saw a revolution in the way that conservation was really prioritized, investments in the landscape, engaging all kinds of folks from all across the country. And the leadership of Secretary Ken Salazar and Sally Jewell was absolutely without parallel. And so without any further ado, let's get into the panel and let me introduce Secretary Ken Salazar and Secretary Sally Jewell.
It's nice to be with you all.
So look, I mean, when you think back to your time as secretary, you know, there are so many accomplishments that you all had in your 8 years together. What are the ones that you are absolutely most proud of that you want to share with everybody today?
Well, I want to jump in and say that I stood on the shoulders of Ken Salazar, and that made my 4 years in the administration easier than his when he jumped in completely cold, having to rebuild so much. So I'm enormously proud to have worked right behind Ken with a capable team that he put together. You know, I'm very, very proud of the work that we did with President Obama and Vice President Biden on using the national monuments capacity under the Antiquities Act to tell a fuller story of all Americans. Bears Ears National Monument, where 5 tribes work so closely together to say these lands are special to us. Places that tell the story of our civil rights journey, from Harriet Tubman to Cesar Chavez to Stonewall National Monument and Reconstruction era and Belmont Paul that told the story of women's equality, Freedom Riders, Birmingham Civil Rights, you name it. These are places that aren't just special natural places. They are public lands that celebrate our journey, both painful and proud. And then I'm also really proud of the way we work together to collaborate and to find common ground. Ken helped tee me up on the sage grouse work. And 5 years ago, almost to the day, the Fish and Wildlife Service said that they did not need to list the greater sage grouse on the Endangered Species Act because of the close work we did with governors that was teed up by Ken Salazar. And renewable energy, I think I'll toss that ball to him, because he told me early on when I was leading REI and I met with him, I want to do a moonshot on energy. And he did a lot of that, and that serves us well today. So Ken, I'm going to flip it to you for a continuation of, just the things that we're so proud of.
Thank you so much, Sally. It is an honor to be with you and Colin and with Ben Ray Lujan and John Tester and the entire team. My father used to say, Sally, when I was growing up, dime con quien andas y te diré quién eres. Tell me who you walk with and I'll tell you who you are. And on this National Public Lands Day, for me, I am just so honored to be walking with you, Sally, and John Tester and Ben Ray Lujan and Colin, and all the rest of the people who I know are hearing us, who really care so much about our planet in this very special place. Whether you're Native American and it's the special connection to the places, whether it's barriers, Grand Staircase Escalante, or whether you're a hunter, a outdoor recreationist in terms of biking or whatever you do, this place that we have is so unique and it needs to be protected. And what you did, Sally, and what Barack Obama and Joe Biden did to me was just immense in terms of turning the world on a dime in those 8 years that we had. And I can think about it in lots of different ways, but one of them was climate and renewable energy. You think that when we came into Interior in 2009, 0 megawatts of public power had been permitted on our public lands. When you left, Sally, you had already created a legacy with Vice President Biden of more than 20,000 megawatts of solar and wind energy on public lands. And I remember the Vice President, when we were headed back to Washington to start our efforts on the American Recovery Program after that great recession that almost took us into a Great Depression, that the Vice President and I were talking about how we were going to invest these monies in making sure we had energy efficiency, that we had renewable energy, that we were doing things based on science. And that's what we did for 8 years. So I'm proud of the achievements that we had there, the climate change centers at the universities, the landscape conservation cooperatives, the many projects that you worked on. I also will think about, there's hundreds of these projects from Alaska to the very south, the Everglades, wherever. But I remember Joe Biden going down to the Everglades. And I remember how much he loved the Everglades because he recognized that what the United States had done in essentially destroying the river of grass, which is the Everglades, was not the right thing to do. And so then it was our job, and he was one of the leaders making this all happen, to make sure that we restored the river of grass to the right place. And we made a lot of progress. Frankly, a lot of what we did has been turned back because Donald Trump and his people have a very different agenda. And that's why this election and this November 3rd is so important. Thank you, Sally.
Well, on picking that up, Secretary Salazar, the last few years have just seen an absolutely unprecedented attack on our public lands by the Trump administration. And frankly, on so many of the accomplishments that both of you worked so hard on and really just built support across the entire country and on behalf of President Obama and Vice President Biden. Which of those decisions do you think we should be most concerned about? Which are the most painful for you, and how? And which are the ones that you think we should prioritize at fixing and changing as we try to figure out a way to undo the massive damage that this administration has done over the last few years? Secretary Salazar, why don't I start with you?
Thank you, Colin. We could probably spend 3 days listing out all the horribles that this administration has done on their assault on public lands. And so almost everything that they do every day to me is awakening about the nightmarish time that we're going through and why this election is so important. But I'll name just a couple. One is the rollbacks on the monuments. Sally had a tremendous role in terms of barriers and the protections of Grand Case Escalante, the protections around the Grand Canyon. And to watch somebody come into an administration who, for the first time since Teddy Roosevelt started using the Antiquities Act, and basically roll back those very precious protections that belong to the American people. Frankly, it's sickening that they did that. In addition, the respect for diversity, especially the inclusion with Native Americans and what Sally did and President Obama and Vice President Biden did so well was to say we needed a new beginning in our relationship with Indian country. And what this administration has done is it did a 180 and turned its back on Native American people in this country and Alaska Natives. We need to make sure that we reverse that back and continue to build on that legacy that Vice President Biden and Secretary Jewell and President Obama built. So those are two things that stand out. I could go on. The Alaska National Wildlife Refuge, God, I just remember being in those fights in the United States Senate. I remember being up in the refuge itself and spending time in the refuge and looking at its wonders. I mean, for this administration to basically open up the refuge for oil and gas development, frankly, is absolutely alarming. And so I could keep going on, but I'm sure Sally has her own set of complaints about what this administration has done.
Well, as you say, there's not enough hours in the day to get into this, but let me say that one of the things that Ken referenced that I'm very proud of as well is our work with Native American communities, Alaska Natives, Native Hawaiians, and American Indians. And, you know, when I think about the parade of horribles of the Trump administration, it is all one-sided. The Trump administration has only listened to the interests of those who want to extract from the earth. And they've done nothing to listen to the interests of those who have been stewards of the earth since time immemorial. So just a couple of examples. I mean, Ken Salazar and Deputy Secretary David Hayes did a lot of hard work in the National Petroleum Reserve in Alaska to say, look, we understand these lands are available for petroleum, but let's develop in the right ways in the right places. So they protected Teshekpuk Lake, which is a critical calving ground for caribou. That was reversed by the Trump administration when there was zero reason to do that. The oil companies weren't asking for it. We worked hard to protect the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness from hard rock mining in that watershed that could wipe out that area that is so critical. And, you know, the Trump administration has been undermining that. Oil and gas development just outside of Chaco Canyon, sacred in New Mexico area. Reopening the Arctic waters to drilling when Shell had a $7 billion mistake. They relinquished all their leases. We did the right thing, which is saying Arctic waters should never be developed. The Trump administration reversed that and so many other protections. And the good news, by the way, is the court reversed them because they're lazy, sloppy. All they did was try and undo what we did. And when you don't do that the right way, sometimes you lose in court. So like the Pendley decision on the BLM, there's some justice in the world as long as we continue to have a thoughtful and balanced judiciary, which is very much at stake with this election. And of course, you know, supporting drilling in the Arctic Refuge, as Ken said, in a tax bill. So, you know, they weakened rules, the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, the Endangered Species Act, NEPA, all of these bedrock environmental laws, which are laws, they have interpreted in a way to unwind so much of the hard work that we did. And just one other quick story, a very Republican governor from a very red state saw me in summer of 17 and said, God, I miss you, Sally. And I said, really? You miss me? You got the House, you got the Senate, you got the White House. I said, why do you miss me? Because of the hard work we did collaboratively on the sage grouse and the fact that President Trump said he wants to revisit it. And now the oil companies are coming to me saying, we thought we had a deal. Why are they revisiting this? So even things that Republicans work on in a collaborative way, and I've seen Joe Biden and Barack Obama do this every step of the way, they've tried to undo. So, you know, by undoing everything that we did, they inadvertently hurt a lot of people that otherwise might have been their supporters. And the good news is we do have people like Governor Bullock that took him on in court around the Pendley decision. We've got many nonprofit organizations that took him on around the sage grouse decision and methane rules and so many other things that even the Dakota Access Pipeline, where all of those things are being revisited. So I guess there's a bit of a silver lining if we can just get Joe Biden into the White House.
No, thank you for that. And I apologize for kind of putting me through the trauma of having to relive so many of those decisions. But to everybody watching out there, I mean, this is what's at stake. It's this energy dominance at absolute the cost of unfettered development at the expense of all of us in our cultural history and our outdoor heritage. So now let me end with a more hopeful question. Throughout the campaign, Vice President Biden has consistently championed our public lands. He's talked about investing in the restoration and resilience and reclamation, creating millions of jobs through part of his Build Back Better plan. He's talked about creating a 21st century civilian climate corps, kind of modeled after the amazing work from the New Deal. He's talked about saving important places like the Grand Canyon and the Arctic. What are the parts of his big vision and then the types of investments that they're talking about that really get you most excited for the future of our public lands? Secretary Salazar, why don't I start with you?
Thank you, Colin. So I think when we look at the world that we're navigating through now, which is affecting all of us, you see these crises, you see the pandemic, which we're living through right now, you see the economic fallout of that, you see the racial injustice, social questions, and the fact that that is being raised to the forefront. And you see the issue of climate. And the way I see it, and I think the way the vice president sees it, in fact, I've had conversations with him about this, is we are going to get, with the right leadership, we'll get through the pandemic. With his leadership, with the vice president's leadership, we'll get through the economic crisis. The harder issues really are around racial justice and really climate change and conservation and how we take care of our planet. Those are not easy. People have been working on them for a long time. Joe Biden was one of the first people to ever introduce a climate bill in the United States Senate. And so he recognizes that this existential threat to our planet needs a comprehensive approach. And there's lots of components to that, right? It's one, you got to listen to the scientists, right? Climate change is not a hoax. The scientists tell us that, right? Two, you need to have an action plan. You got to have, first, of course, the Paris Climate Accord. We need to rejoin that global effort. And we need to get that even into a stronger place. And we need to do what we have to do in this country, which has evaded so many people, bring people together for a national climate framework. And we need to do a lot of things that Sally and many people working on during the Obama-Biden administration, the climate change centers, the landscape conservation cooperatives, so we have connectivity. There is so much work to do. And I would say that when people say, this is an existential election, it is an existential election for our planet and for those who believe in preserving it. So much of the substantive information and plans that the vice president has put out, including the 30 by 30 plan, those are all exciting to me. And I'll tell you, Sally and all my friends who are on this call, I went through trauma after Hillary Clinton lost in 2016, okay? But it's been really in the last 3-4 months that I have become an optimist again. And I'm an optimist because of Joe Biden and his vision and his plan, and because I know that he knows how to get things done. He'll deliver on these things, right? So I'm excited about where we are, excited about this election, excited about the future. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sally.
Thanks so much, Ken. You're a tough act to follow every time, and that's a good thing. And I certainly did that for 4 years. As you review the Biden-Harris plan, you will see so much that is good for the natural world and all of the beings that share this world. Start with restoring thoughtful regulation. To suggest that regulation is bad is dead wrong, right? There is a lot of regulation that I would say is bad that needs to be adjusted, and that's not what this administration has looked at. We've got over 30 different rules and regulations that favor oil, gas, and mining interests and create an unlevel playing field. The Biden administration will take a look at those and remove those things that incent people to exploit our resources and destroy our natural public lands. The Biden and Harris administration understands that jobs are important, and they would not, do things that are radical to undermine our energy generation as it is now. They would just invest in a brighter future in renewables while supporting those who are working in extractive industries until there is a brighter future. And those jobs are all important right now. But they also understand that outdoor recreation and tourism are important, that sustainable fisheries are important, and sustainable timber and ranching and hunting and angling. These are all legitimate parts of our economy, big parts of our economy, actually, and those that can be done in harmony with the land. So that a Biden and Harris administration would restore thoughtful regulation like methane rules. Like, let's not just allow people to vent and flare methane into the atmosphere without even paying royalties, not even considering the cost to the climate that they're doing. So they would address that. Restoring thoughtful environmental impacts around the coal program and moving us past coal into a clean carbon future. Creating an advanced projects research agency specifically on climate. And then one of my favorites, putting young people to work on public lands. And Ken knows that as I visited him when he was secretary and I was not, I'm a big fan of engaging youth in connecting with the natural world because it changes our lives and it connects us to place in a way that I think so many indigenous communities have understood since time immemorial, and so many others have not even had that connection. So let's get young people to work, restoring our landscapes, dealing with climate change, dealing with the risk of fire, raking the forest. I mean, let's call it, thoughtful forest management and enabling people to understand what's at stake. So with a Biden and Harris administration, I know we would have that. And whether it's 30% of our land protected by 2030. It's developing in thoughtful ways, in the right ways, and in the right places that create jobs. What we have with a President Biden is a compassionate, caring, listening human being who would restore the spirit of our democracy. The one quick story, if I may, and that is that my first time to really see the vice president in action was after 19 firefighters had lost their lives in the Yarnell Hill fire in Arizona. And I diverted from a trip I was doing in renewable energy in Nevada to go to that site as the BLM was taking over. And the devastation was just, it was just hard to wrap your head around. I flew with the vice president and Mrs. Biden to the memorial. And the vice president, between the compassion and caring he showed for the individual firefighters and their families, to the most stirring, heartfelt, thoughtful speech that he gave to the thousands of people who had come for that memorial, you're dealing with a real human being here who cares not about himself, who has dedicated his life to public service, who will bring back and restore our democracy. And that is why I am, as Ken, optimistic about this election and about the potential of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as a team to lead this country forward. So we need all of your help, and thank you so much for being on this call, for caring about public lands, and for supporting a new team in Washington, D.C.
No, thank you, Secretary Jewell, and thank you, Secretary Salazar. Look, the stakes are incredibly high, and we're really grateful that everybody's on the line right now and watching this video. But we really need to act. There's 38 days left between now and Election Day, and folks are already voting all over the country. And so if you care about public lands, if you want to make sure that we invest in the restoration and the jobs and the vision that you just heard from Secretary Jewell and Secretary Salazar, we need your help. So at the end of this call, we're actually going to start making phone calls into Arizona. So stick around for the next little bit of programming, and then we'll be back to tell you how you can help out today before you enjoy the rest of this glorious day in the great outdoors. Thank you for everything you do. Let's make sure we win in the fall. Caroline?
Thank you, Colin, Secretary Sally Jewell, and Secretary Ken Salazar for being true champions of our national treasures during the Obama-Biden administration. And thank you both for all that you're doing now to advocate. I spoke at a federal hearing Secretary Jewell hosted in Utah about Bears Ears National Monument during the Obama administration, and I can attest to her hard work and dedication as she listened to hundreds of folks speak in a packed auditorium on a 100+ degree day. Seeing Bears Ears undone by the Trump administration was heartbreaking. I learned through that experience that activism is an endurance event. We have to keep moving forward. Let's elect Biden-Harris to protect 30 by 30. And I share Secretary Salazar's excitement and optimism. Our next guest has worked to protect New Mexico's public lands, watersheds, and wildlife for future generations. He's worked with local communities to designate the Rio Grande del Norte and Organ Mountains Desert Peaks National Monuments, and he currently serves on the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee. Please welcome Senator Martin Heinrich.
Hey everyone, Senator Martin Heinrich of New Mexico here, joining you on Public Lands Day from one little acre of your public lands, 1 acre of 640 million acres that are really every American's birthright in this country, and one of the great democratic accomplishments of our nation. But the truth is, our public lands have been under attack for the last 4 years. We've seen our national monuments like Bears Ears and Grand Staircase Escalante stripped of their protections. We've seen incredible landscapes like the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, open to oil and gas development, home to caribou and muskox and polar bear. Landscapes, cultural landscapes like Chaco Canyon threatened with development. And it doesn't have to be this way. You know, it wasn't that long ago that I worked with Joe Biden and Barack Obama when they were in the White House to protect big landscapes in New Mexico that are important to all New Mexicans, culturally and economically. Places like Rio Grande del Norte and Organ Mountains Desert Peaks National Monument, places like the Valles Caldera National Preserve. We can go back to valuing our public lands, to seeing them for the wildlife and the wildlife habitat and the clean water and the outdoor recreation jobs, and not just as a place to exploit. So this Public Lands Day, more than ever, give back to your public lands. Make sure you vote public lands. Make sure you vote for Joe Biden. There's a better path forward. And let's all look forward to the next 4 years being a whole lot better than what we've been through in the last few months. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Heinrich. We are now thrilled to be joined by another remarkable public lands champion. Earlier this summer, I had the opportunity to interview this guest on my podcast, The Caroline Gleick Show, and his humility and grace gives me so much hope for the future of democracy. Representative Raul Grijalva from Arizona serves as the chair of the House Natural Resources Committee, overseeing public lands. Please welcome Chair Grijalva.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to acknowledge and appreciate our public lands and waters. And once again, an opportunity and a chance to extend my total support for Vice President Biden and Senator Harris. By the way, I'd like to recommend a new documentary film. It's called Public Trust. It's a contemporary look, a real-time look at our public lands at this time. And I believe that it's a good motivation and a real good reason why we need to work hard to elect Biden and Harris. I recommend it highly. You know, the first Americans, the indigenous peoples of North America, as the original stewards of our public lands, how they must feel to see the Trump administration assault our public lands and waters, and their feelings are very profound and very personal. We should all feel that way. I know that as President, Joe Biden will reverse the damage done to our public lands and waters by Trump and enhance the protections and the conservation that is necessary for our public lands and waters. Our public lands and waters are truly a shared responsibility for all Americans. Every American owns a piece of it. Your zip code, your income, your race, your gender, your age does not matter. We all own the same amount. And I think that is one of the most democratic of American institutions that we have in this nation. And also our public lands are a crucial part of our identity as a people and as a nation. 4 more years of Trump, and this shared identity and responsibility is lost. A Biden-Harris administration will call us to action. And I look forward to working with that administration to preserve our public lands and waters for generations to come, to preserve this national treasure that is so much of who we are as Americans. You know, a Biden vision for our public lands or to make a quick buck schemes of the Trump administration. That's the choice before us. And it's not a very difficult choice. A Biden victory is a lifeline and a future for our public lands and waters. Let's do everything we can to make sure we win, and that soon we will be calling Vice President Biden and Senator Harris, Mr. President, Madam Vice President. That is my goal. That is what I'm working for. And I want to thank you and the campaign for this time to be able to give my opinion, and to thank you very much for the work you're doing for this country and for our public lands and waters. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Grijalva. We're with you 100%. Now we're excited to hear a performance by the talented Ray Zaragoza.
During these challenging times, I'm humbled to be a part of this movement, to come together and support our only choice to heal our nation's soul, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. This song is called Fight Like a Girl, and it's dedicated to our future VP, Kamala Harris, and all of the women of color who have fought for our rights.
Grandma Nature, Mother Moon, show me what to do when they are taking our rights away, policing our bodies. Easy, easy we go. It's repeating on and on. Take me to the water, take me to the snow, where all the souls of our mothers had to go. Take me to the street sides, teach me your battle cries. Take me to the front lines of a war, to fight like a girl. Send me knowledge, send me peace, for when you were fighting for all the rights I have today, our homes, our votes, our voices. Easy, easy we go. It's repeating on and on. Take me to the water, take me to the snow, where all the souls of our sisters had to go. Take me to the street sides, teach me your battle cries. Take me to the front lines of the war, to fight like a girl. Fight like a girl. Fight like a girl. Fight like a girl. Take me to the water, take me to the snow, where all the souls of our mothers had to go. Take me to the street sides, teach me your battle cries. Take me to the front lines of the war, to fight like a girl.
What beautiful music from Ray Zaragoza. I love the rallying cry, fight like a girl. Now we're going to transition to the most important part of this event. We are 38 days from the most important election of our lifetime. Historically, the US has been a leader in every way. Right now, we're falling behind in taking action on climate and protecting public lands. Currently, we have a president who repeatedly slashes climate progress while he openly brags about assaulting women. The two are related. I've learned that how we treat people, especially women, is how we treat the planet. If nature is a mother, we must elevate the status of women, girls, and mothers. Environmental justice is social justice. We owe it to the rest of the world, to the kids who are watching, to set an example we can be proud of, to set history by making Kamala Harris the first woman and woman of color vice president. We have a choice between someone who acts out of hate and fear or someone who makes decisions with love in their heart. We have the choice between the president we have now, who has destroyed our public lands and done nothing to combat climate change, or we can elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who will be true champions for public lands and who have a revolutionary plan to tackle the climate change crisis. We need your help. Below the screen and in your email, you can find a link to join us now for a phone bank into the important battleground state of Arizona. Please click that link and join us. Joe and Kamala need our help, and there is truly no better way to celebrate National Public Lands Day than to send them to the White House to protect our public lands and climate for future generations.